Hey everyone! I finally went ahead and bought some heavy machinery. So this here is a Ford 555, and I know that because it's written on it. But other than that, I don't really know an awful lot about these machines, because this was really not what I set out to buy in the first place. So the thing is, those of you who have been following for a while probably already know that I've been needing some kind of machinery to help out with some of the heavy lifting around here. And I really was looking to get a wheel loader because I have a bit more experience with those. I've been driving those and I just like those as machines. But I just couldn't really find anything that was suitable for what I needed. Most of the things I could find was just enormous machines, like 15, 18-ton machines. And that's just way too overkill for my tiny little plot of land here. But I did find one, and it was an old military machine, so that naturally had my interest because that's just what I like. And I have been trying to buy that machine for several months now, but I just could not make arrangement with the guy who's selling it. I talked to him a couple of times, but he just kept me waiting, and I never heard back from him, and eventually he just didn't even pick up the phone anymore. So I kind of gave up on that deal, but that still left me to where I still needed some kind of machinery. And then this thing showed up, and it was just right over here, not very far from where I live, which was really nice because that means I could just drive it right home. I didn't have to arrange transports and pay for that. And also the price point was, well, it wasn't a steal, but it was reasonably priced for the condition that this is in. So I kind of just thought, you know what, let's just go and pick this thing up and we'll just make the best of it. So here we are. And as I said, I don't really know an awful lot about backhoes. I've never even driven one, but I have been doing a little bit of research on this thing just to kind of figure out what I was getting myself into. So let's just go ahead and take a look around this thing and see what I got. Right, so clearly this is a very used machine. Now, unfortunately, I don't know the year of it, but I do know that the ones that are just named 555, those are the first ones in this series of machines. Later on, they got some extra letters. And my best guess would be that this is from the mid to late 80s. And now I do just want to point out that the ones we have over here are made in France. So that means they are a little bit different from the ones you would typically see in America. And that mainly concerns this whole rear attachment. From what I can tell, the rest of the machine is pretty much the same. And that also means that the engine we have in here is the same 3-cylinder Ford diesel that was last serviced in 2018. So we might go and do that again in the near future. But what I also notice when I look in here is that the block is red. So I'm pretty sure this thing had a new engine block at some point, because everything else on here is yellow and it's just the block that is red. I'm pretty sure the manufacturer would have just painted everything yellow back when they made this. They would not go in and tape things off to leave the block red. So yeah, pretty sure it got a new one of those, but it does have really good compression and sound really healthy. So it's probably not a bad thing. Also looks like it's been used for some demolition. Still some construction debris on here. And this exhaust they have on here, that is clearly just the muffler from a car that they shoved onto it. It does work surprisingly well, but it is falling apart, and also I would like something that looks at least a little bit nicer, so I'm probably gonna put something else on there pretty quick. Some of the lights do work. I do have indicators and I have lights on the rear, but I don't have any driving lights up here in the front, so I also might want to look into that. Also, I do have some spots up there. I can't get those to work either, so I think I'm gonna want to replace those with some nice bright LED lights. That would be cool. And yeah, the windshield does have a tiny little stone chipping in it, so I might need to replace that at some point as well. Now the steering does work, but there's a good bit of play in it, so it's a little all over the place when you're driving down the road, so it was just on the verge of being sketchy driving this home. But other than that, it does drive pretty nicely. The transmission and the torque converter and all that works really well, no issues with that. And it even has brakes. Most of the other ones that I've been looking at, they had no functional brakes at all, so the fact that this one can stop is pretty nice. And also, we do have really good rear tires on this. They're not even rotten, and there's plenty of thread left on them, so that's cool. And the front ones are not bad. They're used, but they're fine, so that's nice. That's one of the expensive things. So now to the important stuff, which is the attachments on this. So this whole rear arm, that is the main difference between these and the American 555s. So the American ones, they just have a center-mounted arm that is fixed in place, and also the support legs are the type that swings down or folds down. Now on this one, you can move the whole rear arm attachment from side to side on this rail back here, and also the legs move straight up and down. So there's several reasons I really like this setup. So one being that you can be right up against a building or some other obstacle, and because the legs move right up and down, you can just put them down right next to, well, whatever obstacle is in your way, and you can move the arm all the way out, so you can dig right along whatever obstacle you're right next to. That can be really difficult with the other setup because you just cannot get that close. And also, having the whole arm out to one side is just much better for your view of what you're doing when you're operating that arm. When you have it in the middle, it tends to really block your view and you just cannot see what you're doing. But if it's out to one side, it's much more easy to see what that shovel is doing down there. So I really do like that. And of course, one more thing, when you're able to move the whole arm out to one side, you can fold it up on itself like this and move it all the way up against the cab so that the whole thing becomes really nice and compact when you're just driving it around, because you don't have that whole arm just sticking out the back. And as for the wear on all this stuff, it's really not as bad as I feared it would be. It seems like all of the main bushings and pins in the whole arm and all of the cylinders and stuff, it feels like it's been regularly greased and serviced, and there's really not a whole lot of play in all of that. Well, given the age of the machine, of course, I mean, there is play, but it's really not that bad. But that's just the arm itself, and that goes for the front as well. The arm is really good, but the buckets are really bad, however. Some of these bushings and pins in here, they have finger-sized clearances, and yeah, they're also getting pretty thin. They're not exactly holding water anymore. So I'm probably gonna have to be re-welding and fixing up all those buckets at some point, but they do work, so that's not anything I'm gonna do right now. We can just deal with that someday when we have time for it. And all the hydraulics are working really fine. Some of the hoses are starting to look a little bit sad. You can see the outer layers are peeling and stuff, and I mean, they are moving all the time, so it's not any surprise. But there's really not any major leaks that I can find anywhere. I mean, there's some tiny seeping on some of the cylinders, but it's really not badly leaking anywhere. And yeah, it's mostly the same story with the whole front loader or front attachment here. All of the bushings and the whole arm and all this assembly, it looks really nice. It looks like it's been serviced, not an awful lot of play, and it feels really strong and very responsive. But the buckets are, well, the front bucket is actually not that terrible. It's still pretty straight and looks relatively solid, but the bushings down there, they are also just completely gone. So it is gonna need some work at some point. Oh, and by the way, I did get a couple of extra shovels for this, and also some forks to put on the front end loader. The forks are just some homemade things. They're not great, but they are usable, so I'm gonna keep them for now, but I might want to do something else for that. And the shovels, they are just as bad as the one that is already on the rear, but it's a reasonable starting point. We have the narrow trenching shovel here, and then we have this wider one. I don't actually know off the top of my head what you call these in English, but it's pretty well used. This whole edge was supposed to be straight, but it's just one big curve. So it's not going to make any kind of pretty work as it is right now. They are going to need some repairs as well, but it's pretty cool that we have them. Right, let's get in here. So unfortunately, I don't know how many hours is on this because the whole RPM gauge is not working, which means the hour meter there is not working either. But it did get to 3,500 hours before it stopped working, so it's done at least that. But I'm pretty sure it's done a lot more because it does have over 31,000 miles on it. And that's a lot for a machine like this because they don't really drive a whole lot. Typically you just have the engine on with some RPM on it and you're back here operating this arm. Also, that's another thing I'm going to have to address at some point is the seat doesn't lock, so I can just rotate freely around. And that was also a bit sketchy driving home. We do have some sophisticated hi-fi mounted up here, but strangely it doesn't work. But other than that, the cab is actually not terrible. It still has all the original padding and all this stuff, and there is a floor in here. It's not completely rusted out, so yeah, again, pretty happy with that. I just kind of need a new front windscreen. It's a little annoying to look at. Actually, I don't even know if this opens. Oh, it does. Cool. Cylinder is not really holding it though. Okay, nice. Now I have had it parked right here since I brought it home yesterday, so let's go ahead and fire it up and you can hear how it starts. There you go. Fires right up and runs nice and smooth and even fairly quiet for what it is. So this thing sounds nice and healthy. This is the biggest hand throttle I've ever seen. I would tell you how to drive this, but I'm not entirely sure myself just yet, so I think it's a little too early for me to be giving that kind of instructions. But we do have 4 gears that we can select from, and we just select whatever gear we want to be working in, because once you are driving, you're not going to be switching gears. So if you're going on the road, you just put this in 4th, which is up here. Yeah, it's opposite. So you have 4th up here, 3rd down here, and then you have 1st up there and 2nd down here. But you just select a gear, and then you select forward or reverse, and you just let the torque converter do the work. So you're not switching gears while driving. I also really like having that switching forward and reverse. I don't have to sit and clutch it and manually switch from one gear to the other, so that's really nice. Cool. Now the most important thing about this machine is that it already runs and drives and mostly works, because this is not really meant to be a project. It's not something that I'm gonna tear apart and start restoring, at least not right now, because it's really just meant to help me with some of the heavy work around here. Now we will be doing repairs and fix some of the things that are wrong with this and do general service and all kinds of good stuff. But we'll just be doing it along the line as we need it, and I've been using it and figure out exactly what is important and what isn't. But there is 2 things that I would like to address immediately. One of them is this mirror, because it's in the wrong place. It's way too far back, so it's exactly where you want to put your head when you're going in and out of this machine. And I've only been in and out a few times, but I've already hit my head on that way too many times. The other thing is this door. Unfortunately, this has been in an accident recently. The guy told me that it got hung up on something and it's been bending the bracket and a bit of the door as well. Fortunately, the windows are intact, but you can't close it because it's hitting this corner right here. And I'm thinking it's this bracket in here. That's not supposed to have this angle going forward. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to go straight out from the cap, like the one up there in the top. And by the way, it's not the first time something like this has happened, because it has some really nasty welds on the inside there. But yeah, want to see if we can get something in here and push this back out and shape this a little bit so that we can actually close the door on this thing and keep water and animals out of it. Okay, so I was hoping this was going to be easy, but I didn't think it would be this easy. I mean, it looked pretty solid, but really you can just do that. I mean, it's not wobbling or anything weird, so I think it's just supposed to move like that. So now I just have to twist the mirror a little so I can still see something, and that's one thing taken care of. Okay. I see the problem now. So the mirror is hitting on this arm back here. I can't really turn it any further in. So the only way I can get it to where I can see something is by pulling the whole arm back. That's just not gonna work. So I'm either gonna need a different mirror, or I'm gonna have to modify this arm. Either way, that's gonna have to wait. I'm just gonna leave it out of the way for now, and let's just take a look at this door instead. All right, so on further inspection, this looks like it's bent a lot more than I initially thought. This part is also bent pretty bad. Again, going by the top one, looks like it should be just roughly coming off at 90 degrees from the door itself. And this is not close at all. And same with this thing, going from the top up there, that's pretty much just coming off at 90 degrees from this post right here, and yeah, not like that. Also just saw this rubber catch for the door here to hold it open. Pretty sure that's supposed to go into this hole right here, but it's all the way back here from there to there. So yeah, this is very bent. Gonna be interesting to see if I can get this just somewhat back in place. Let's give it a try. Let's just see if we can get this door off. You can see the hinges are a little twisted, or the pins in the hinges are twisted. So well, it is moving. I don't really know how heavy it is. Oh, here we go. Oh, it's really heavy. The only concern with this is that I'm not really pushing on the right part. I don't want to just bend the end of this. Might just be doing the right thing though. Yeah, I think it is. We're getting there. A little bit more. That's pretty close, but it's probably going to bend back a little bit. All right, see what happens. That is not too bad. That's actually pretty close to what the other one up there is doing. Nice. But I'm just going to leave that for now, and we'll focus on the hinge down on the door before we try and put that back on. Alright, so this door is a little more bent than I thought. It's actually this whole last section here that's been bent out. I'm honestly a little surprised that it hasn't popped this window here. They usually don't like bending at all when it's this hardened glass, but hopefully it's not going to pop when we try to push this back. But if anything, we should be relieving pressure off that. And it's still the same thing that I have to do. I'm going to be pushing on that hinge right there and see if I can straighten the whole thing back out. Only problem is I don't really have anything to push against. I was thinking that maybe I'd take this whole handle assembly off so I could push against this edge in here, but there's really not a whole lot of steel right here because that's right where the door catch is. So I don't really want to bend that, and I'm thinking this whole door is not exactly pretty anyway, so I think I'm just going to do the easy thing and weld a piece of steel to it right here so I have something to put my cylinder up against. And the other thing is that this lower section here looks like it's a little twisted. It's been pushing in right here and it's been pushing out right here. So the whole thing is a little twisted relative to the rest of the door. But I'm not sure that even matters, so for now I'm just going to leave that and I'm just going to wait to see what that does once we get that door mounted again. Right, now we have a stop that this thing can be supported on. Now I don't really know how strong it's going to be because I could only weld it to this outer sheet metal here, but we are going to be pushing sideways on it, so I think it's going to be all right. Let's just give it a go, see what happens. Looks like we're doing the right thing. Oh yeah. It's making some unpleasant noises, but it looks right. That's a little too much, but it is probably going to spring back. That is pretty close. The pin on the upper hinge here, that's also bent quite a bit, so I'm just going to see if I can put a pipe over that and force it back into place. Don't know if I can do it like this. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay, that's good enough for me. Nice. All right, let's see if we're even close with this thing. Hopefully these hinges just somewhat line up. Ah, come on. That is pretty close. And look at how smooth this is now. We're still hitting down here somewhere, but this is pretty close. The catch is actually touching. Nice. Just bring you in for a closer look here. So it's this whole lower part that's twisted. It's been pushed in right in that corner there, and that's where it's hitting before the rest of the door gets this last bit of way here. So we just need this bit to come out a little bit, and I think we're pretty much there. All right, so I was looking at how to do this. It's this part that I want to bend back out. But actually, I think I'm just going to put a block in between this edge right here and the door, and I'm just going to try to push it in, see what happens. We got a little bit closer. And so I just noticed that the latch here gets kind of stuck in place. It was all the way in there, so I think it's gonna need a little lubrication, but let's just try it once it's out. Haha! It even closes. Nice. Does it open? Oh yes. Sweet. I mean, there's still a huge gap right down here, but I can live with that for now. At least I can close it off. I just noticed these two dangling pieces of angle iron up here on the front. I'm not really sure why they put this on here. It's also been mangled a bit. Oh, wait a minute. It's probably... yeah. It's probably for holding those forks that he made for the front. They hook over this edge right here. There's a little bit of blue paint on here. You probably can't see that. But yeah, they've probably been meant to hold down those forks so they wouldn't hop off. Right? I have no need for that. I'm just going to remove these because they're just going to get caught up in this joint down here. There we go. Nope, this one's not coming out. Haha. So now, the moment we've all been waiting for, or at least the moment that I've been waiting for. Let's try to go down and dig some holes. Alright, so do keep in mind, this is the first time I'm really operating one of these things. And without any formal education, this is how I think it goes. So, first off, slightly higher RPM, so we get a little bit more response from those hydraulics. And then we use the front bucket out there to support the front end of the machine. Just lift it a little bit. Oh, there we go. I'm using the wrong hand for this. That doesn't make it any easier. All right, we swing back here, and then we have to get our support legs down. Aha, okay. You know, I think we can open this window. There's a hatch up here. Oh, okay, it swings around, so I think it sits all the way out on the outside of this, so I'm gonna have to get the arm out of the way first. So, let me see. That's this one. See if this will open. This big old handle right here. Huh. It does swing all the way around. All right, nice and open here. That's really cool. All right, let's give this a try. So. Wrong way. Oh, wrong way. Ah. This is really cool. There's just something about having this huge extension of your arm. Oops, wrong way. There's gonna be a lot of that. Wrong way again. And done. Haha. Nice. Alright, I'm really getting the sun in my eyes here. This was a pretty bad spot, so let's just pack it up. I've seen what I wanted to see. We gotta close that window first. It does have a catch down here, but I don't think it caught it. All right, that worked. Cool. swing back around and we can get that front shovel off the ground. And just like that, we're ready to go. Alright people, I'm gonna end it here because this is becoming quite a long video about not a whole lot really. But I just wanted to show this thing off because I am pretty excited about this. I'm sure this is gonna be a lot of help to have around here. So thank you guys for watching along, and we'll see you in the next one.